Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy podcast. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a newer, stronger foundation essential in creating your meaningful legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. As much as you like this podcast, I'm certain that you're going to love the book that I just released on Amazon, Fuel Your Legacy, The 9 Pillars to Build a Meaningful Legacy. I wrote this to share with you the experiences that I had while I was identifying my identity, how I began to create my meaningful legacy, and how you can create yours. You're going to find this book on Kindle, Amazon, and as always on my website, samknickerbocker.com. Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy show, and I've got a phenomenal guest on here, Keaton Nelson. He actually reached out to me after hearing me on another podcast and wanted to know a little bit more about legacy or how I viewed legacy. And we had such a good conversation. I was like, man, I don't want the conversation to end on his podcast. So we're bringing it onto our podcast to continue the conversation, but also learn more about why he does what he does. He's now the owner and creator of Perpetual Motion Marketing. And so I'm going to let him define and describe a little bit more about what that is. But I think what he's sharing, you may be a business owner. You may think, oh, why do I need a personal brand, or why do I need to be marketing myself in general? The statistics are crazy. Okay. Statistically, this is crazy. 30% of people are more likely to date somebody with a personal brand. Okay. You might think, well, why does personal brand matter? Because people trust you more. They don't want to get catfished. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. If you're going to be watching their children down the street or whatever, having a personal brand matters. 61% of people said they're more likely to go to a doctor with a personal brand than just any doctor. So you might think, well, I just work at the hospital. Why do I need a personal brand? Because people care about it, right? They want to know that you are who you are. And so part of that, having a good brand, is actually knowing how to, perpetually get yourself out there in a way that people can get to know, like, and trust you. And that's what Keaton's fantastic about. It aligns great with my mission of legacy, because you can live a great life, but if you don't live a great life and have people know that you're living a great life, then what impact is it having? So, there's a lot that I'm bringing in from his show, and he'll be able to tell you when that airs and, all that. But we're excited to have this conversation. Go for it, Keaton, and tell us where you started, a little bit of your childhood, how you got to where you are, and why you're so passionate about it today.
Oh, man. Well, thanks for the great intro, first of all. That was awesome, dude. I'm excited to be here. We had an awesome time having you on my podcast, and you're right. I just want to continue the conversation and get to, get my story out there to your listeners too. You said start with my childhood, right? Before this, you wanted to say start early, okay? So I was born in New Mexico. I moved to Virginia by the time I was 2. So I don't remember thinking about that. But I moved with my mother, who's a single mother, and to be around our family, which was my closest sibling, who's 17 years older than I am. Right? She's my closest sibling to me. I have a brother who's 19 years older than me, and a sister, she's like probably 22 or 23 years older than me. So with that being said, definitely not an ordinary, childhood for sure. I was like an only child, but I had these older siblings, right? Grew up in Virginia till about 5th grade. I moved around a lot in Virginia, so I was going around, bounced around from school to school, and always being the new kid. That allowed me to, get to know people, make friends, a lot of life skills that most people who have been in the same school system forever and have the same friends do not have. I'm not saying it's good or bad, but it was a huge skill for me as I grew up and I look back on. And then my sister, who we were, closest with in Virginia, she got married to a guy who's from Rhode Island. So we moved in 5th grade to go hang out with them because my mom wanted to be around the grandkids to come, right? Definitely tired of moving at this point, probably moved 5-6 times already in Virginia. I'm like, I'm done with this. I'm going to 5th grade. But I was in that school system for a little bit. And then, teenage years, middle school, get into a little bit of trouble. Riding around on bikes, smoking weed and stuff. And then we ended up moving one last time to West Warwick. And what was wild is West Warwick had this crazy music program. Like you'd go and compete at like international festivals and things like that. And they won. And I was just learning how to play guitar, and I got really, really, really good at it. And ended up winning awards and also that type of stuff. And I got excited, and I was applying to music schools. So I ended up going to school for music, and I love jazz composition, and that's what I went to school for. And while I was in school, I fell in love with a girl, and we had a kid very shortly after we met. So I met in October. We were friends for a few months, and I had to win her over, start dating and stuff. By January, we were dating, and then by May, she was pregnant. Wild, right?
Nice.
I was like $50,000 in debt, working at Subway at University of Rhode Island, making some sandwiches. And then I I realized that finishing school for music and trying to work at Subway was not going to be a way that I could support my family, right? So I started dabbling with the idea of like, first of all, I was like, how can I just have a place to stay and live? And I ended up waiting tables. For those of you who don't know, you can actually make pretty decent money waiting tables, easily make 50 to 100 grand a year, depending on where you work. But man, that is not a fun life to live, especially when you're trying to be a responsible adult. I think it might be a great life to live if you're just being a kid and enjoying it. But I wanted more for my family. So I started, drop shipping. I started like all these online businesses and like trying to, play around with entrepreneurship. And I'd dabble in it, and then I'd go 3 steps further, and I'd find a challenge and I'd quit, right? Or I'd run out of money to spend on ads or this. I wouldn't try and figure out how to solve the problem. I'd just accept failure and quit. And then I was just waiting tables, and then I went to a Super Bowl party. Or a Super Bowl party, sitting around with my father-in-law and his friends, and this guy sitting next to me. He's like talking to me about how he's a real estate agent, and he's like, "Look, dude, I can make 3% on this $500,000 house." I was like, 3%? That's $15,000. Like, how many of those can you sell? He's like, I don't know, like 10 a month. I go, what? Which, by the way, exaggerations here and everything. But I was fired up. Like 2 months later, I was in like the accelerator program. I got my license, my real estate license, and I was trying to go and sell real estate. Dude, I tried it for about 6 months before I got my first sale. It was a $70,000 condo, and I think I got like 2.5%. And then you pay your broker. They don't tell you all this stuff. You have to pay half of it to your broker. You got to do this, this, and this. And next thing you know, you paid for your license. You paid for your dues. I think I was left with like $20. You know what I mean? It wasn't a lot of money. And I stayed with it though a lot longer than I did with all those other businesses. And I got to a point where I was about to close on 3 pretty large houses. It was a week away. All of them had 3 closings lined up in a week. And I was about to make more money in a week than I had made in an entire year ever. I was like, this is it, guys. This is amazing. I worked really, really hard up to this point. I showed like 70 houses to this one client who's selling and buying a house. And then this other person I showed about 15 houses to, and we were ready to do it. I took it all the way through. And then the seller decided that she didn't want to buy this house anymore. I was like, okay, we can go find another house. And then she's like, I don't want to sell my house. We had it under contract. Boom, 2 deals gone. And I had nothing. It was all out of my control, right? The financing fell through on the 3rd deal, and I lost all of it in the same week. At that moment, I gave up. And I went back to waiting tables, and I said, I'll just become a manager at Red Robin. Make $55,000 a year, get my 3 weeks of paid vacation, and maybe I'll have some benefits. So I did my shift supervisor training. I was starting to apply for management positions, and I turned 26, and I really just took a look at myself and said, is this what I want to do? Is this what I really, really want to do with my life? Do I want to spend the next 10 years going in and working 12-hour days, managing people that it just was not going to, everything about it I didn't want to do. I didn't really want to do. I was just doing it because I thought I was being responsible. Right. And then I said, you know what? I need a way to pay off this debt. I need something that's going to actually give my family a life that I want to give them. Right. I wanted more than just a crappy rundown 2-bedroom apartment with drunks and drug addicts next door and stuff, because that's all we could afford. You know what I mean? And I prayed. I didn't have an answer. I was like, God, if you just give me an answer, if you just give me an idea, a business, whatever it happens to be, an idea that will allow me to give the life I want to my family and pay off that debt, I promise I won't quit. If you give me a natural answer that I think will work, I won't quit like I've done on everything else. And I prayed and I prayed. I prayed multiple times a day. He said, please give me an idea. Give me an idea. Went for 3 days. This is where I was at, right? I still smoked cigarettes at this time, right? I was outside on my back porch smoking a cigarette, and the idea hit me like that. When I did real estate, the only way I got leads was from posting on social media, because I couldn't afford to buy leads on Zillow or Realtor.com or market it in any other way. But I could post on social media, and I got people who was like, hey, my aunt wants to buy or sell and stuff. But that's how I got my leads. And I was like, I bet people will pay me to do that. I bet people will pay me to do that. I'm like, how much could I charge? And I started playing with it. I was like, God, this idea works. I threw my cigarette out halfway through, which back then I never did. I just suck it down to the filter, right? And I ran inside and I started writing out how I wanted to do it. And then it's funny what happens when you make a decision like this. What I now know is a terror barrier kicks in. You have an idea, you make a decision, you're going to go after it, and then all the thoughts come in as to why it's not going to work. You might even run into people and they'll tell you why your idea is not going to work. And you just have to push through that. I didn't know that's what I was doing at the time, but that's what I was doing. I was like, why would anyone pay me to do this? They won't do it. I can't charge enough money. They won't want to afford, no one wants to invest in you to do this. Those are the thoughts that are going through my head. It's like your own self-critic. It's your self-saboteur, cranking through your head. And I went to a Mexican restaurant down the street. This guy who owned it, he was young. He was like my age. I was 26. I think he might have been 25 or 24. I'm like, man, how did you get this business? Whatever. And he told me his story. And he told me the story, and I go, dude, I've been thinking about this business idea. I tell him I wanted to, manage people's social media. His reaction was crazy. He goes, dude, if I wasn't doing this restaurant, that's what I would do. It's brilliant. Everyone needs it. You got to do it. So I went home and I went on Canva and I designed this thing saying I would manage people's social media. And I called a print shop. I was like, how much to print out this? And I was like 30, 50, how many flyers can I get? I looked at my bank account. I had $32 in my bank account. I'm not even joking. I had $32 in my bank account. Okay. I spent $27 on it was between 40 and 50 flyers. What's wild, it didn't even fit on the page. It had a white rim around it. And I was like, I can't go hand this out. It's not going to look professional. So I went home and I sat by the TV. My daughter was watching Moana. And I sat there so carefully for about 2.5 hours, cutting off this little sliver of paper really meticulously so it didn't look all jagged and stuff. And then I didn't even go and pass them out. I didn't go and pass them out for like 2 weeks because more of those thoughts came in my head. I went and did all that. Spent the last bit of my money. I had like $4 in my bank account. I still didn't go and do it. And then I talked to someone else and they're like, you should do it. And they're like, it's a great idea. Just give it a shot. I said, you know what? If I go and do it and no one calls me or I don't get any sales, at least I know that I did it and I gave it a shot. So I went and did it. It was a cold day in February in New England. It was like raining. I remember it was sprinkling. I went to like sandwich shops, pizza shops, barbers, CBD stores, dance studios, like all these local businesses, right? And everyone's like, nope, screw you. And my pitch was like, I wasn't in there. I was like, hey, I'll manage your social media. And if you decide to do it today, you give me a call back before the end of today, I'll do your first month for free. A couple days go by, and I remember I was picking up my daughter from my mom's house because she watched her and stuff on some days, and I had a phone call come in. The phone rang, and it was like an out-of-state number, and I was like, it's probably a bill collector, or it's probably like, those scam calls or whatever. I was like, ignored it. And then I saw a voicemail was left. I was like, oh, that doesn't normally happen. I checked the voicemail, and this guy who owns CBD stores was like, hey, my manager said you came into my store the other day and you do social media. Can you give me a call back? Mind you, I'm picking up my daughter at like 6, 7 o'clock at night, trying to bring her home. It's freezing out. It's March in New England, or it was still February, probably snowing. It's freezing, like lower than 20 degrees, right? I bring my daughter down in the car. I turn on the car, turn up the heat. And I'm standing outside in the cold because I'm afraid my daughter's going to be like yelling while I'm on the phone. And I'm like, hey, yeah. And I asked him, like, he had someone that was already doing social media, told me what he was charging. And I said, what don't you like about what he's doing? And why are you thinking about switching? And I said, I'll do all of those things and what he's doing, and I'll charge you $200 less. And he had 4 CBD stores, and I signed up 4 CBD stores that week. Within my first month, I did such a good job and did what I said I was going to do that he referred me to about 5 to 10 people, and he signed up. He had multiple businesses, signed up to some more businesses. I think I made like $2,500 my first month in business, and I was waiting tables at the time. I was like, I'm on top of the world. This is amazing. And it slowly snowballed from there. And now we're doing 50 to 100K a month. I've got a team of, we've got a team of 5 in states, and we got a lot of people overseas, and we work with a lot of contractors, but I pay about 20 people every week. And I travel about once a month. I get to bring my family. I've bought my mom a car. I've got to do everything that God promised I would do if I stuck with it. And I'll tell you what, I left out a lot of pieces of that story where I did want to quit because business isn't easy, but I stuck with it. I remember crying 2 a.m., like waking up 3 a.m., couldn't get back to sleep, stressed, went through all that. But it paid off.
Freaking love it, man. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I'm going to dig into some of this information. I think it's just like, it speaks to the different mindset of somebody and the different areas of our lives. Because what I like about hearing somebody's journey from the beginning to the, and I say end, meaning current, because it's not over. That's the cool thing. It's not over. But when you hear that, you're hearing the full transformation, and you're hearing it often from a perspective of it already worked out, So it's cool. It's fun to talk about because they're already working it out. But when you're in the midst of it, I just listened to a podcast by Ed Milet and this comedian, Christina P. And they're talking about how we need to, like, you can only be as funny as you are comfortable with the darkness of your life. right? The more comfortable you are with the darkness, the more funny you are on stage because you're okay. You've explored the darkness. And my wife and I have talked about this before with our own kids. Like, how do we help our kids, like allow them to feel their emotions as like 3 and 5-year-olds, but also still get them to do what we need them to do? Because at some point, like, we're the parents and we're the adults and they still have to like not run out in the road. They still have to do certain things for survival reasons. And so their feelings, although they're important, they are often superseded by like the known facts that an adult knows, right? We know you don't go run in front of a car. Well, why? Well, because we want you to be around. But to a 5-year-old, they don't understand that necessarily. So like, how do you, when they're pissed at me and when they're in the darkest of their moments, how are we recording the darkest of their moments in their words so that when they're older, we can say, hey, look, you used to feel this way. This is like direct. You told us this. Okay. And so my epiphany today, as I was listening to this, is next time my sons are in this like whirl of emotion, which is probably going to be later today because it's all like constant. Okay. Especially one of them, very emotional, love them to death. But instead of like getting upset, because that's normally what happens, my temper's fairly short sometimes. But like, I'm just going to turn on the voice detection on my phone, and just, hey, how are you feeling? Why do you feel this way? And start interviewing him and let him like, oh, I hate you. I want you to die. I want to die, whatever, right? We all feel these things. Like, it's normal to feel a wide range of emotions. And as we're growing up, we get trained that feeling all these emotions is actually not okay. Mm-hmm. When in reality, maybe feeling all those emotions, if we really understood them, could help the next person on their journey. Okay. And so that's what I love about your story and you sharing some of those details with us of like, look, this sucked. And then this happened. And then I got all of it done. And then it still sucked. So let's talk about this a little bit. So single mom, you're 2 years old. And some people will say, well, 2 years old is too young to really know what's going on. I think, well, I know I have memories from when I was 2 years old. So like, I know that if not specific memories, there's still feelings and stuff. And even if it wasn't 2 years old, it's like 3, 4, 5. It's still formative years. Like I studied neuropsychology in college, and the main idea there is that your brain's actually like a lot of your programming is done by the age of 8. Yes. By the age of 8, you've decided who you're going to be and a lot of stuff about life. From age of 8 to 25, before your brain is like fully developed, and if you're not watching this, I'm saying it in quotations, is actually a search for evidence of who you believe you are or what you were trained to be from 0 to 8. So from 8 to 25 is evidence gathering to reinforce your identity from 0 to 8, which is crazy to think to your child. You might think, oh, it doesn't matter if I'm with them when they're young. When they're older, they're going to remember. No, what from 0 to 8 is like, that's their formative years. And then 8 to 25, also formative, because that's where they're gathering all of their evidence for their beliefs about their identity from 0 to 8. So both sides are very important. So when you say single mom, that's a very easy way, I would say, to gloss over maybe more pain. Like, how did she become a single mom? Why is she a single mom? Why are you the 17 years away from your youngest sibling? Like, that doesn't just happen generally. Generally, there's some things that lead up to this massive gap and a mother becoming a single mom, whether that's there was no marriage and there was an unfortunate circumstance or whatever. So I'm curious, dig into a little bit more of the emotion there about like, how did that come to be? And what was the energy that you felt from your mom about that circumstance that she was in?
Yeah, interesting. So I love that you push it. This is cool. So I didn't know how far you wanted to go in that. So this is
We're going. I want the deets. I want to know.
Yeah, this is good. I vaguely remember the car ride. And by the way, like this is back in the early 90s, mid 90s, where like I was like sitting in the front seat without
no car seat, no seat belt.
You know what I mean? Yeah,
yeah.
Exactly. 2 years old. So I vaguely remember that. And I didn't really grasp much. Let me take this back. So I don't know how my mother felt. I don't. I have no idea what she felt like during this time. I can imagine now as an adult how it must have been and be freaky. here's a story of where she came from. She got pregnant at 17 years old, and then with someone that she didn't stay with. Then she had 2 kids with someone she married around 22 years old, who was abusive to both the kids and her. Then she took $20 in her sock and rode a bus to Seattle with 3 kids by herself. And then I know I'm kind of like glossing over it, but there's kind of a lot that happened. I want to be able to get it all in there, right? She ended up in New Mexico when they were, graduating high school, and she had actually sent them off to live with their fathers at that point because my mother was going through things emotionally. Then she met my father in New Mexico, who already had a 16-year-old daughter, did not want another kid. Right? So she knew that he didn't want another kid. He probably saw me once or twice in those 2 years. And she didn't want me to grow up around that disappointment, so she moved me to live closer to my siblings.
So in that situation, would you say, and again, this is all probably hindsight and hearing from, but like, even though he didn't want that, do you feel like over that 2-year period of time, did she still love him? Did he still love her? Or was it like the moment she got pregnant, it was like, you betrayed me because you knew I didn't want another kid, and I wrote you off as a human, but I have some obligation to you, sort of?
So he wanted an abortion, and she wouldn't do it. I think she was also on birth control when she got pregnant with me. But she, from my understanding, is that they had like a fun relationship for about a year, and this happened accidentally. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So I don't know. It wasn't as like, doesn't sound super serious, Sure. But my mother was 38 at the time, and I think my father was around the same age. So I don't know if that answers your question.
No, that's good. No, that's good. So she chooses. A lot of this is like, if you're a parent, if you're listening to this as a parent or maybe a business owner, you have to make decisions that seem crazy, that for the betterment of the people around you, even if it's not your ideal situation, right? So
Sure.
Sending her 3 children to live with their dads probably wasn't the most ideal situation. There was a reason that she wasn't still with those people. It's not like she just accidentally found herself in Seattle. She left them for a reason. And then because of life circumstances, what was best at that point, and what's best doesn't mean it's the best situation. It's what's best now, what makes sense now. The best could still be a really crappy deal. The best deal could still be a really crappy deal. So she sends those kids off, gets pregnant again. And then because she wanted to protect or create a healthy-ish environment for Keaton, she moves across the country again. But when you move across the country, this is a funny thing. You have to start over everything. What'd she do for work when she got there? What'd she do for housing?
Yeah. So he lives with my sister, who was, mind you, very young. She was probably 19 years old, right?
Yeah, think of like the humility of the parent who has to say, look, my life has not worked out so far. I'm now moving in with my 19-year-old child because they're more stable than I am.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, yeah. I just think of like the amount of sacrifice a parent goes through to provide the best situation for their child, even though they're making the best out of a bad situation, is incredible. And not only in that light, but also as a business owner. Like I like to think of this in both ways because this is my life, right? I'm a father and I'm a business owner. And sometimes you have to make the best out of a bad situation in business. You have to fire people. You have to hire people. You have to make decisions that feel crappy. They don't feel like the right decision, but they're the best out of a crappy situation. And so I think that's huge there. So now we move forward into, the benefit of being able to make a lot of friends. I am more or less like you in the way that I moved around quite a bit. Maybe not as young in my formative years, but I still had moved around. And I love the fact that I was able to make new friends often. And I think that's one of the things that probably contributes most to my success in life is my ability to do that. And even though it's uncomfortable, I'm a super introvert. I don't actually like the process of making new friends. Okay. It's super annoying and like, why do I have to go make new friends? But I value it to such a high degree that I actually moved my family from Utah to Arizona so that they could go through that process of learning how to make new friends. So now I'm imposing the moving on my family so that they can go through this exact skill that Keaton didn't know he was learning and how valuable it would be in his future life. He was learning at a young age. So talk more about that and how you felt about it in the moment that you always had to make new friends versus how you feel about it now and realizing how it benefits you in business.
Yeah, so I did not like it at the time, right? I like hated it. The fact that I had to like leave my friends behind, right? And it was freaky going to a new place, no one knowing you and everyone knows everyone else, right? Back then, that's what my thought process was. And it was scary and made me probably have anxiety and stress, and I didn't know what those were probably at the time. But, I mean, looking back on it and all the people I did meet along the way and being in different places in the country, I think was a benefit to see how people live differently in different areas, right? On top of the fact that I get to meet new friends. And you learn how to adapt and respond. And it seems like the wrong thing, but I think it's okay. What I mean is I can get people to like me very easily. Is what I find. I think I'm a very likable person, and I've been told that like it may not come across on the podcast, but come hang out with me, you'll have a good time.
It's right across, bro. You're fun.
You know what I'm saying? But like that's probably the best thing. I become very likable, and it might be because I'm like pandering to who I'm in front of, but I'm not sure that that's such a bad thing. I think it's okay to know your audience, type of thing.
Sure.
And it's how I respond on but what's wild, I've never marketed my business. I've grown through referral to 50 to 100 grand a month.
Right. I mean, you marketed it with $27 and some flyers, right? But
that was it.
That's it. And I think that's a crucial thing is there's two aspects of this. You are not necessarily, and quote on, I'm going to maybe correct the statement, but I understand how you're saying it. So I don't want to distract from what you said, and you're marketing your business by doing phenomenal for your clients. Yes. And the more you market for your clients, the more their success is. That is your marketing strategy, is doing really good.
Yeah.
Some people's marketing strategy, McDonald's, they gave up on the doing really good at providing a good hamburger. They said, I don't care. My marketing strategy is to be omnipresent and to produce at a low cost. Okay. So what somebody's marketing strategy is up to them. Your marketing strategy, I would say, is invest all those marketing dollars, all the things you could do into being so good that people can't help but talk about you.
Yes.
Okay. But what's interesting is this skill of learning to be a chameleon to a degree, not in a malicious way, not in a shady way, which some people might think of that, but the ability to relate and read people well, that helps on both sides of his business. One, it helps you better read and understand who the client is you're trying to help and who they are, because you can read them well and their business and understand them on a more personal level, but also how to recognize, hey, the ideal client, this is what they're looking for, so you can then market to them better because you're using your likability and your knowledge of how to be likable to infuse that into these other people's brands. Because it doesn't matter how good your brand is, if your brand isn't likable and people don't want to interact with it, you're not going to get much business. So you need somebody who's doing. I'll share another person on my podcast. I forget which episode it was, but he had the craziest stutter. He still does. He has a very strong stutter. But he took his stutter and he went into copywriting for advertisements. I was like, well, how did that help you? And he's like, well, my stutter was a gift, because the problem that copywriters have is how many different ways can you say the same thing, right? Well, somebody with a stutter, that is the essence of their life. they're trying to say something and their mind is going through 1,000 different ways to say the same thing because the thing they're trying to say isn't coming out the way a normal person would say it. And so like his gift is that he stutters. His gift, the things that make him super, super phenomenal at copywriting is the fact that his mind stutters. It forces him to think of other ways to create something.
Very cool.
Okay. And so to a degree, you have a similar gift where you were given the gift of learning how to read and become likable. And now you can employ what seems like the darkest, the biggest liability, the thing you don't want to talk about, that you were always moved around and all this stuff. It becomes the biggest asset in your life and business. And that's the principle I want to draw out for anybody listening. The things that you are so scared that somebody might find out about you, the things that you're worried about, hey, I was driving around smoking weed, whatever, that ability, that chameleon ability, or in his case, but it could be anything, your things that it sounds bad to say this about myself, those things are actually the things that can contribute the most to your success if you learn how to use them for the benefit and blessing of the lives of others. If you maliciously use them, it might be your downfall. But if you use them to bless the lives of others, I believe they can be your biggest asset. So the next thing that I want to focus on here is, fifth grade, maybe it's fifth grade, you move to this new place that I don't remember I didn't know how to spell it, so I didn't write it down, okay? But you get to this music program. I think that's another instrumental part of, if you're listening to this, who have you been around that was a winning culture? Being around a winning culture is important at some point. Being exposed to a winning culture is important. It doesn't matter what it is, but being exposed to that. So go into a little bit more detail there about how having that early culture of winning maybe shifted your perspective on your childhood and made you grateful for where you ended up rather than, oh, this sucks, why'd I have to move again? Shifting your perspective to, you know what, I wouldn't have been part of this winning culture if I didn't have to move again.
Oh, big time. Big time. I mean, it sounds so weird coming from music, but God, we practice like a motherfucker. Like I don't know if I can swear on here, sorry, but
that's what it is. We did it now, it's fine.
Sorry, guys. It's the explicit thing. Yeah, so we practiced so much. So much. We come in at 6:30 a.m. in the morning before school started, practice for an hour, Monday through Friday. On Tuesdays, we'd stay from 2 o'clock until 3:45. And Thursdays, we come in from 5 to 7. And then about every so often, we do a weekend where we do 12 hours on Saturday and 12 hours on Sunday. And then we also had music and band classes throughout our school day. It was a lot, but we were like the best. It was wild. Like we were high schoolers that sound like professional musicians. And it was a lot of fun, and it was cool because it was a big band. It was a jazz big band. So there was 17 of us. I think it was a team. And then we were giving people crap when they couldn't play their music right, because that's what good teammates do, But we'd help them along too. But I mean, we'd also be like, "Come on, man, you're holding us back."
So talk about that in the conversation of high standards. You saw this team who had a high standard, high expectation because they were good, right? So you saw them winning, and as a result of winning, you wanted to be part of it. And it was the high standards was okay because they were winning at a high level. If they had those high of standards, practicing 12 hours a day, but they never won anything, would you have still wanted to be part of it?
Probably not. No.
So a good work ethic, all of that stuff, and losing is not nobody wants to be part of that. And so again, this is part of a family. This is part of a business. This is part of a religion. It doesn't matter what area of your life. You need to be winning. Okay, winning is important. Okay, yeah. It's not everything. But if you aren't winning, people aren't going to want to join you. And winning looks different in every area, right? Winning doesn't mean you get the golden thing. Winning could be nobody knows who I am, but my family loves me, right? That could be winning. Okay? So winning is different, but with these high standards, did you ever feel like it was too much?
To be honest, no.
That's good. So what do you feel like it was when you were doing it, when you were there for 12 hours and waking up early and staying late? How'd you feel about that?
It's one word. It's one word. It's passion, right? If you have passion for something and you actually enjoy it down to like your soul, it doesn't feel like work. Not 1 second of it feels like work. Is it hard? Is it difficult sometimes? Are you tired? Yeah. But none of it felt like work.
Did you get I've been in music, and in my experience, music teachers are among the most cutting, criticistic people I know. I don't know if that's a word, but they love to critique, and like cuttingly. It's not like, hey, maybe do this better. It's like, without swearing, because most of them don't swear.
He swore.
Most of my music teachers, they didn't swear, but man, they would dig. It wasn't like, hey, you need to do this better. It's like, hey, why did you miss that 16th of a note? You dumb person, like, you can do better. And they were cutting about it. And it was like, if you're not going to do this, get out of my classroom right now. There's no fairness. Like, if you're going to play around today, you were caught whispering to your neighbor for 20 seconds or 5 seconds, or you looked away from me while we were singing. If you got something else better to do, get out of my class. Like, they were harsh. Music, I think they're among the harshest coaches I've ever known in my life as music teachers. Yeah. So how did you think that, like, that really harsh criticism, and I say criticism, I don't know if that's the right word, but they were building you to be a professional, really. How do you think being exposed to that type of harsh feedback helped you when it did come down to the other people in your life who are saying, hey, you can't do this, you're going to fail, why are you wasting your time? Because you got both, right? You got the people who believed in you, but you also have the people who are like, why don't you just be a waiter and earn $50,000 a year and some benefits, right? I love you, don't risk it, just go.
Yeah, but I had a bunch of those for sure, yeah.
You have a wife, you got a kid that you have to take care of, and they obviously want you to at least keep providing food. So why are you doing this business venture that you're going to fail again? We just failed at real estate. We just failed at all these other business ventures. What makes you think you're going to win now? Just go provide for us. Even if it's crappy, we want to survive, okay? Like, it's not they're not trying to hurt you by giving you this criticism. They're trying to survive. They're responding in fear. But how did that music training contribute to your success later in life?
I've never thought about it before. You're like opening my eyes to things right now. I've never thought about that before. But I always thought I just wanted to prove them wrong, and I use it as motivation, right? Which I guess that's what happens when you get criticized, right? Like, this happens with salespeople a lot, like car salesmen. I know car salespeople will pay thousands of dollars to go to seminars to get yelled at for hours about how bad they suck at their job, because then they go back and they crush it, right? So it's probably the same thing. Whenever he said, like, he tearing to me about playing wrong notes or playing the wrong chord, well, like, what's wrong with you? And I came back and I knew my part. I memorized it. I can play it with my eyes closed, and so it works. I never, ever, ever thought about that before, about the relationship.
Interesting. I think it's interesting because on the other side, I really like to. I was just talking to a friend. They were over my house, and they're like, "Wow, you don't care what anybody thinks about you." I'm like, "No, I care a lot. Like, so much that I don't like being criticized." And I know that most other people, they're too scared to confront me because that's humans, and I don't like confrontation. They don't like confrontation. So if I'm the first to say my piece, then most people won't rebuttal me because they're not certain enough about their mindset to rebuttal me. So my solution against confrontation is to be more vocal than anybody else. But none of us like criticism. None of us like critiquing or confrontation. But I think that in those moments, when we've had so much of it, then we understand it. Now the question is, how do you feel about being that person for the next person? You're working in social media, advertising. You're managing 20 people, and getting your thing wrong, you're ultimately responsible for it. They can't misspell your crap. They can't have the wrong picture. you don't want to get sued for copyright infringement. Like, so they can't screw it up. And you have to be the person, the big bad monster that you didn't necessarily like when it happened to you, but it helped you. How do you like square that and then go be that person, even though you like to be liked? We all like to be liked. Okay, I think that's a natural human thing. We like to be liked and we like to fit in, but sometimes we have to be harsher because that's what we need to do, even though it may take us out of the liked category. During that 2 days when you're practicing your butt off and you're swearing at your choir teacher or whatever. But then when you go win, you're like, oh man, I'm so grateful you never gave up on me and you believed in me. Like, there's always a time for appreciation, but in the moment, sometimes I found it really hard to be corrected. And I don't want to be the jerk to the next person. But also I know that when those people were that way to me, I improved. So it's like this catch-22. Am I willing to do for somebody else what somebody did for me, even if it makes me look like a bad guy for a short time?
Yeah, so I was getting on a plane last Friday, and we had a little team huddle, and I popped on my meeting, and they didn't have the stuff done that they should have had done. And I didn't even care that it didn't get done. I asked them why, so I had to know why so we could fix it, and no one had an answer. And I go, come on, guys. This can't happen, And I came in on, Tuesday when I was done traveling, came back, and they had like the most beautiful plan laid out, so it never happened again. And it was like almost brought a tear to my eye. It was so beautiful how perfect this system was. I was like, gosh, thank you. But I don't know if I'm actually like a really, really positive type of dude. I love to give positive reinforcement. I love to give positive feedback. I love to cheer people on and tell them how amazing of a job they're doing. I find that motivates and keeps the morale in the office a lot higher. But when I react that way and I say, come on, guys, when you're like your parents are disappointed in you. I don't do this on purpose, but this is what happens. It's worse than them being mad. It's worse than them yelling at you. And they're just like, oh, I let Keaton down. I let the company down. And then they go and they work hard to get it right. It's the same thing when you're the one person in the band and you don't know your part. And you're like, come on. You're the one person stopping us from greatness.
Yeah, and you feel like this small when you get that. You're like, oh, I'm the one that's failing. And there's nobody else. You can't look at anybody else. You just have to accept it and say, okay, I will do better.
Yeah.
That's all you can do. Oh, man, we are out of time. This is terrible. I have so much more I want to talk to you about. Anyways, if you guys are getting tons of value from this, you guys need to go reach out to Keaton. Obviously, you can see who he is at his core and his commitment to being the best thing for you and helping your business get the branding and the social media marketing. So if you guys are toying with the idea of social media marketing, not sure where to go, not sure who to ask, not sure if it's going to work or not work, just reach out to them and find out, how do they find you if they wanted to maybe go that direction, have their business being marketed through social media? How would they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so you can definitely get to me personally in my DMs on Instagram. So it's at the Keaton Nelson Show, and I will respond to you personally on there. Just make sure you follow me. If I don't respond to you, get a comment so you get out of the request, and I'll follow you back. And I will respond to you one-on-one. It just might take me a little time to get back to you. But if you're looking to work with us, I know this just blew over, but this is a skill that not everybody understands. So just explain what you just said about if you send me, you're in a request. Most people don't know what a request is on Instagram, and what's the process of getting out of the request feed into a different feed. If somebody, because this is he just said this, blew over, everybody knows it. Most people don't know this. And this could change your effectiveness of leveling up and connecting with people who are farther along in the journey, whether in any area of life, how to actually get to the person
is huge. And Instagram has created like gatekeeper rules inside of their algorithms. And so how do you get past the gatekeeper of Instagram requests?
Yeah. So first of all, go follow. This is like our secret formula. It's really, really easy. Follow the person you want to talk to. Like about 3 of their photos and send them a DM. If they don't respond, go back and comment and say, hey, I sent you a DM. I love your content. I want to chat with you. If you could say why you want to chat with me in the comment, that's even better. Like if you got a business proposal, or I want to work with you, I want to hire your company. It's a lot easier for me to be like, okay, perfect. Then what happens is I go into my DMs and see that you're not there. And I go to my requests, and then I'll be like looking for your name because there'll be a bunch of other people in there.
Right. So a comment and a like is like, especially if you have a decent social media game going down on Instagram, you're getting lots of likes and you're probably not like going in and checking everybody's profile. But when you comment on a post, it goes into their notifications, not their inbox. And so when you comment and have a conversation with them in their comments, they get notified of a comment. Another way that I've found fairly effective is if you, what's it called when you respond to their story?
Oh, the story.
Yeah, you can respond to their story and you can tag them in a story, and it will generally not show up in requests. It'll show up in, hey, you've been mentioned in this, and it goes into the right feed. So anyways, those are just little things that if you're struggling to get a hold of your person that you're trying to reach out to, that has they don't know who you are, they have no reason to necessarily know who you are yet, there's ways to get in front of them and get access to them if you make yourself of value to them. And that's not like that these people only care about who is bringing them value. The Instagram algorithm doesn't care about you unless you're bringing value. Okay, like it's not that they don't like you or that they're ignoring you. You haven't learned the skills to be valuable to them. Okay, like it's not.
People are busy too.
Like, people are busy.
Like, so I need something to catch my eye. Otherwise, I won't go looking for it.
Anyway, so get you in Instagram DMs, and then that's the best way to get a hold of you.
Yeah, one-on-one, you'll get me that way. If you want to work with me, you should send me an email at Keaton@PMmarketing, as in Perpetual Motion, pmmarketing.co, not .com, .co. So, and then my assistant will respond to you and we'll get something booked on my calendar to talk. So
awesome. I freaking love it. We did not get to everything today. That's okay. We'll have to have him on again. But it's just, this stuff is so cool. And now you get to know Keaton. He's awesome. From when I met him on his podcast, I was like, you know what, this guy, he needs a shout out. And I just want to interview him because there's more to depth to who he is than what he gets to on his podcast, because he's busy interviewing other people. So super, super appreciate that. What is your podcast name and how would they find that?
It's the Keaton Nelson Show. Yeah, so you should check that out. Definitely check out Sam's episode. I wish I could tell you when it's being dropped. I would say sometime in September, if I had to guess. I'd say late September, mid to late September. My team handles that. If you send me a DM or an email, I can let you know when.
Sure. Right? Well, just go subscribe to his podcast, and then when it pops up, you'll get to listen to it. Yeah,
subscribe. We got some awesome guests. Dude, Sam was on there. There's a whole bunch of awesome people on there. Yeah, really, it's going to keep getting better and better with the guests that are coming on there too. And we're going to have Sam back on too because we need to talk more. It's like we need to talk more. But yeah, man.
Sure. Cool. I love it. Hey, we'll catch you guys next time on the Fuel Your Legacy show. If you guys get the opportunity, please rank this, like go in and say 5 stars, leave a comment, and leave a review. That just helps more people see this show and get access to the same content. You can also share this and just send it directly to them and say, hey, you need to listen to this guy, Keaton, and Sam. Why not? Send us both of them. Anyways, love your support, and we'll talk to you soon. Catch you later on the Fuel Your Legacy show. Thanks for joining us. If what you heard today resonates with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me, and if you do give me a shout out, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Thanks to all of those who've left a review. It helps spread the message of what it takes to build a legacy that lasts. And we'll catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy.